Lesson 6, Unit 5. Closing the contracts. This is the process to ensure that all contractual obligations from donors, vendors, consultants, and other providers are closed to the satisfaction of all parties involved. This process ensures that there will be no claims or liabilities to the organization once the project ends. Closing the donor contract or grant is the most important step. Here you need to review the contract clauses to make sure that you are not missing anything important. You check that all contract requirements are complete. This may include evaluations, audits, list of assets purchased with donor funds, the project completion report, and final reports from finance with information on balances. The objective of closing the donor contract is to make sure that the project has met all the donor contractual obligations and requirements, and that the donor has accepted the final report. This will indicate that the project has completed all work and the beneficiaries approved the deliverables. Make sure to review all the contract obligations and ensure that they have been completed to the satisfaction of the donor. Another important step is the closing of inventory assets. Review the inventory and asset report. That will give you a list of all the items that were purchased with the donor funds that were not used by the project or distributed to beneficiaries or the communities. Contact the donor for guidance on the process to manage all the remaining inventory and assets. Donors have specific clauses and specific procedures about what you should do with that excess inventory. Just because there seems to be no use for excess inventory doesn't mean it belongs to the project or to the organization. Closing vendor contract is the review of the contract clauses that you have with different vendors and ensure their services have been completed as required. You need to review the terms of reference to make sure that you are not missing anything important. Sometimes there will be a final report or a final deliverable that the vendor or consultant needs to provide. Ensure that all deliverables are complete and there has been a formal sign-off on all vendor deliverables. That means there is nothing else standing or pending with the vendors before you authorize the final payment. You also need to complete and close any outstanding items that were open during the life of the vendor contract. You should only approve the final payment when the deliverables have been accepted by the project. It is also important for the vendor or consultants to have a letter stating that the services provided to the project were completed as expected. The final step is the vendor evaluation. Most organizations will require the completion of an evaluation report on the vendor performance for the goods and services provided. In the report, you need to identify the strengths, weaknesses, and any other information that will help future projects. The information is part of the procurement unit's vendor database, and they use it to evaluate the services of vendors. Make sure you archive all documentation, correspondence, and changes to the contracts. All of that will become part of the project records.